Hello, internet, or okay, I won't use the Matt Pet intro. Uh, hey guys, first I gotta apologize for the poor lighting. It's cloudy outside, and I obviously, since recording isn't my profession, I only have like a book light up there. There's my hand. I only have a book light as my to provide some lighting here. So sorry in advance for that. And fun fact: this is actually take two of a video I did when I was home in January, but that one went out a little longer than I was hoping it to. So let's see if I can uh, make it shorter this time around. So question is, well, if you read the title of the video, maybe not so much a question, but of course I got to introduce what it is you're looking at here. This here is a PAL CED player. If you've seen Tecmo's video on CED, this is the well, not this, obviously not this exact player, but this was the type of player that he used to showcase the CEDs that he had, because of course, being based in the UK, he only had access to the PAL stuff. So this player is meant for PAL CEDs only. You cannot play a US disc in these players, and likewise you cannot play a PAL disc in a US player, because US players are meant for NTSC. This one is meant for the PAL stuff. So so I got this player is the one that Josh, if you've seen his video, this is the one that he was selling along with his collection, and I was interested in PAL initially just to see what differences there were in the circuitry between the two standards. Quick side note on that is because there was some talk on possibly doing a dual standard player, and a couple of guys were interested in doing that, trying to see how, to make that happen. And so I figured I could possibly step into the, and got me thinking how would you approach that. So that got me looking to see how a PAL player works. So that was my initial interest in going into the format, the subgenre of the format, as it were. But unfortunately, this player, as you see, it only has these three options on the front here, and most of all, it's a mono only player. Hence why there's no stereo bilingual light there. So this thing, if you come across this player, it's going to be mono only. But what is interesting is that I won't turn the player around because of convenience. But there actually does have RCA outs on the back of the player, fully labeled like it's a stereo model, video outs, and audio left and right. So it's, and also it comes with the stereo Hitachi stylus, which has the, I believe it's the noise filter on the stylus, like the FG stereo stylus. So I guess the explanation for that, at least, would be kind of like when RCA was just throwing the stereo stylus into the first generation players, the G100s, FG100s, is that, well, that's just what they had at the time, so they just threw in any stylus they had, and it just happened to be the stereo stylus. So, I realized it's mono only. I'm like, well, that's unfortunate. I guess I'll make do. It's better than no PAL player at all. Maybe it's possible to do a stereo mod on this, but who knows? I'll just enjoy it for the time being. And so far, I have. I really, really love this player. I'm so glad I ventured into the PAL region of the format. So initially for stereo mod, I was thinking, well, I could just, get, because the main board on this is of course the same you would find on the stereo player. It's just that none of the stereo stuff is soldered in. So one thing I was thinking of doing was I could just, brute force it and solder everything there, but obvious problem with that is I have to brute force it, and there's also going to be a lot of resistors and diodes I have to add and make sure all those connections work out and yada yada yada. But it just dawned on me while I was in school one day that wait, the stereo board on the FG players, well, the G200, G250, that has all the stuff there for you. It has the bandpass filter for the right channel audio. It has all the right circuitry to output the audio in stereo. Why not just use that? So that's what you're looking at now. It took one experimenting to get to this configuration here. The previous one I'll explain. The power I was getting to power up the board, because this board, the stereo board, needs, well, it acts for like 22 volts, 22 volts positive, but the voltage regulator is hooked up to can support a max of 35 volts, and you basically just use anything between 0 and 35 volts. But so I was tapping into like the one positive 23 volt rail I could find on the main board. But what's interesting is that when I used that, there was a power hum on the right channel audio. So I was thinking, oh, is it interference from not using an insulated wire for the arm output? But I tried it, and using an insulated wire didn't work. And so when I got my new oscilloscope, because my original one is still out of service for the time being, when I got the scope out, I saw that there were actually sawtooth lines on the DC line, and so the voltage regulator was outputting, well, it was outputting, the 15 volts that it's supposed to output, but there was a drop, like legit, at a 50 hertz rate. So that explains why I heard the power hum, because that power line directly powers the demodulation chip, the right channel demodulation chip. So that's why I decided, okay, I'll just go full wall wart. Well, actually, I first hooked up my DC supply to power the board, and that got rid of the hum. And then I realized, okay, it's just because I'm getting power from the player. So now the board is fully powered, everything works, the mod was a success, and now I can listen to the stereo titles in stereo. So that's backstory behind how I got here. I felt that was important for you to have that backdrop, so that it's not just, well, I just randomly decided to add the stereo board to this mono-only PAL player. Now, there was a reason behind it, and that was all the things that led up to it. I guess a couple other things to note that maybe you noticed. So, these two things here, this was by Josh. Unfortunately, the loading mechanism on this isn't 100%. So, in that, when the unload starts, as soon as like the platter hits the disc, it just stops. So, the solution to that is just to have this so that you can raise it, get the disc out like that. I've since found out that I still need to find the actual cause of the issue, but I've since found out that if you just tug on this, as soon as like the motor loads, it can actually raise the disc up to the normal position, and then you can unload it normally. And this was my solution to the lack of controls there. On these players, they still have the pad, the keypad. It's just you don't have access to all that on the outer case. So I just extended the wires, and it works. So I have access to, this is a reset, this is the fast scan forward, this is the visual scan forward, this is pause, visual scan rewind, and rapid rewind. So that was back when I got the player, a few weeks after I got it. I realized it just dawned on me one night, oh, why don't I just rip the keypad out? And that's what I did. Also, I guess now is the part where I talk about what I hooked up to where. So let's see. So this white wire here is hooked up to the audio arm out line. That's the signals extracted straight from the disc. So what this is, say I'm playing back a stereo title, this is connected to the 905 kilohertz bandpass filter that the right channel audio is modulated at, and so on stereo titles that the audio channel will pass through the bandpass filter. Otherwise, if it's a mono disc, nothing will pass through. So that is quintessential to this whole operation, because that's how you get the right channel audio on the board. So black and red wires, of course, that's the power. Black being ground, red being the positive 24 volts that the wall wart is rated for. Green wire, which one is that? That is defect gate. So, well, first actually, I should say the blue wire is the audio in. So that's the demodulated left channel audio or mono audio that comes straight from the main board here. Of course, I still am using the main board for mono left channel audio needs. So connecting this up to the stereo board means I can have the stereo board handle everything audio for this player. So that's quintessential. And green wire is defect gate. If there's a defect in the audio, in the left channel audio, I should say, this is for the left channel audio. Basically, normally how it works, there's a sample and hold. If this goes, I believe it's logic high, has a sample and hold, use the previous line of audio. If memory serves me right, don't quote me on that. I haven't looked at the literature in a bit here. But also this is for consistency, because the right channel audio is going to have its defect gate right on the board here. So this is just so the left channel audio will also have its defect gate for some consistency. As for what I didn't hook up, where is it? Oh, there it is. So there's not squelch line here. Normally, if you put the player in pause, well, on an RCA player, you put the player in pause, rapid access, or rapid access, rewind, or forward, and the stylus has to lift off the disc. This just stops the demodulation chip from adding noise that would otherwise go through. It's just something with how that defect gate would work. Again, I haven't looked at the service literature in a while, so it's a little fuzzy. The Itachi players actually don't use this for their audio chips. I guess they just use the audio mute line for all their audio muting needs. And speaking of audio mute, the other thing that I couldn't hook up is, where is it? Oh, right here. That not audio mute line, I hooked it up to the audio mute line from the main board, and all the audio from this board ended up being muted, no matter what the mode of operation the player was in. So that's why that's not hooked up. But that is more a quality of life thing. It's just that now I get to hear Martian voices when I have to visually rewind or visually go forward. And that's the purpose of the audio mute. That's just quality of life stuff, so that you don't hear said Martian voices when you're scanning through a program. And I should say the not squelch line hasn't been much of an issue without it, so that is fortunate. But that's all the stuff I hooked up. This is hooked up to, I guess where it's hooked up on the main board, the audio in line is hooked up to pin 11 of the audio demodulation chip on the board, because that's where the demodulated stuff comes out. It's the same as that video demod chip I looked at in the Toshiba player. Goes out pin 11. This is hooked up to, I believe, pin 13, the defect gate. Same audio chip. This is hooked up to one vacant solder pad on the board where the ARM output signal would go if it were a stereo player. So that's where I have this soldered onto on the main board. And of course, this is just hooked. The power is hooked up to standard, I believe this is called an LED adapter. I haven't used it otherwise, so I'm not sure. But that's where those two power lines are. Okay, so audio on this is handled the same way as it would be on like a G250, where mono audio, it's going, the audio, the one audio line is going to get split across both RCA outs, and on a stereo or dual audio disc, the audio, if you have the switch in normal position, the audio is just going to play straight stereo. I can also toggle on the stereo title even between independents 1 and 2, just like on the G250, which is very, very neat. Very unique too. That means I can listen back to Jane Fonda's workout. There you go. The PAL disc of Jane Fonda's workout in straight stereo, because the Hitachi players, of course, won't let you do that. So that's just something unique I can do now because of this mod. So I've nagged off your ear for a bit. How about I actually show this in action? Let me get... Alright. Now I can actually show you how this works. So first I'm going to show off how a mono disc on this works. This is the Dinosaurs Fun Fact and Fantasy. This is one that came from that Josh had that I've since gotten a hold of, because, well, that's what you do when you sell off your collection of something, right? This is, I haven't yet sat through this disc. I really do want to, because since this is like one of 2 discs that Tecmo mainly showed off in the CED video, and that was like that and like Oddity Archives video were like the 2 that made me cement going into the format. This disc does have, even though I haven't watched it yet, it does have a little sentimental value for me because of how prominent it was in Tecmo's demo of the format. So I still need to sit down and watch through this one day. I did accidentally touch the middle of the disc when I was troubleshooting the player when it got to me. So, but looking at the disc now, if it was given to me as is, I would just write off as, okay, this is what it looks like. I would still play it. So I'm still gonna play this. It's not gonna cause any damage to the stylus, so I'm not worried about that. So it goes in like this. This stylus arm is moving towards the first groove Oh, and you hear it already. So for PAL titles, I have to play through my receiver because my TV nor my DVHS
Dinosaurs.
VCR
Fun,
can
fact,
handle PAL
and fantasy.
signals. Well, my TV itself does something pretty interesting. It can decode PAL, it's just that it's actually probably a little hard to notice because you don't have really a frame of reference, but it's doing it in the right color, it's just that it's not framing it correctly, so there's a whole bunch of overscan when doing it through the TV. But the receiver does in both the right color and the correct framing, and good God, this is...
The dinosaurs.
Can you even hear me over that? Goodness
In
gracious.
films and in comic books.
Alright, so I got this going through Pro Logic because that's my default, so
Where
it means
do they live?
on mono discs, all audio is going to come out of the center speaker, as mono audio should. And by the way, great color on this disc. I don't know if it's just PAL or what, but a bunch of discs on this format just look incredible. Alright, so I guess now is the time to show off those Martian voices I was talking about. So because this is not hooked up to an audio mute line, when nothing's going to mute it. If I press pause, normally, well, the Hitachi, well, as I said, the Hitachi players, the audio chips, DMOD chips aren't hooked up to the squelch line. In fact, if I were to show you the board, the squelch line is normally hooked up to pin 8, but interesting, for the audio chips, there's no copper pad for pin 8, so I guess it is meant to all be done by the audio mute line. But there's no noise coming out of the player, so nothing to show off there. But when I hit pause again, because there's no audio mute line, you get to hear the audio that's still being demodulated as the stylus lands on the disc and tries to find a good starting point, so that's funny. But the Martian voices I was talking about, when I hit the... Can you even see that? Barely, hold on. But when I hit the visual forward, visual rewind, fast scan forward,
America. Just look. Did you ever see such a terrible face?
sometimes it takes a while for the fast rewind to kick in. But yeah, so you get to hear all of that now when you're trying to just search through the disc. My one criticism of the Hitachi players and the JK players is that just because I guess of how the home position works, they don't want you to end up visually rewinding off the disc, is that they don't have the rapid access in the sense that the stylus lifts off the disc and you can move forward or backwards without worrying about where the stylus or disc. Now, if you want to, say if you're watching a music compilation disc and you want to see just one song but it's like halfway through the disc, then you have to visually scan forward. Here for dramatic effect, you have to visually scan forward to get to the song, and that's going to end up causing wear to your stylus and your disc. So that's why I really like using the G250 for stuff like that, and it's a shame that there's no player for PAL discs that can do that. But who knows, maybe I can solve the issue of getting an NTSC player to playback PAL. So right there, as soon as that loading motor sounded, I just tug on the, well, tug might sound forceful, but I, pull on the rod here, which I believe Josh said was a modded paint can handle. Don't quote me on that. So I pull on that as soon as I hear the motor sound, and that raises the plier to the home position, and then the, for lack of a better term, spindle will touch the bottom of the plier and just hold it in place as if it actually made the successful loading operation. And that disc hit my garbage can there. That's that banging sound. But here's the, whoops. But now, for the main event, nearly 30 minutes into my rambling, what does a stereo disc sound like on the stereo modded player? If you're only familiar with the US library, you might be shocked to find out that Rollerball not only got a stereo release in the UK, but also was released by MGM, United Artists, in the UK. In the US, I don't own the US disc, and after having the PAL disc, I don't think I will unless I'm going for a complete collection. But the US disc was released by CBX Fox, so this one, because it's released by MGM, now also has a different cover art to the US disc, so it's a double whammy in that case. Most of the time, discs will fall into like one of three categories. You've got the 2+ hour titles that can be fit onto one disc in PAL, because PAL has 75 minutes per side as opposed to an hour. You got ones with different cover arts like Death Wish 2, Taking Up Pelham 1, 2, 3, Dark Crystal, things, and so on and so forth. You can check CED Magic for the whole list. And ones like this, which I'm more interested in, stereo titles that were only in mono in the US. So like Muppet Movie, Blue Lagoon, what else? Tarzan, and Clash of the Titans. So I still need to watch this. I got a sealed one from Josh. This is one he had a duplicate of. One unopened. I'm sorry, one opened. This is the opened one. And one unopened. I still need to check and inspect the disc. So I am looking forward to this movie. This should be fun. And after hearing the intro in stereo, it's basically worth the price of admission. So, as I said, I haven't seen the movie, so I've only used it as like testing, stylus landing and all that, and stereo operation. So, got this going through Pro Logic, so it's going to go through all my speakers basically, depending on how separated the audio is. This is United's artist intro again, since they released this disc. And yes, that really is popping out in stereo in person, but man, that was worth all the effort just to hear that. That fills up the room. Oh my god. All right, I need to stop myself because I can listen to that quite literally all day. I still need to. I still need to open the seal disc, and furthermore, just actually watch the movie, because just to hear what the stereo mix is like, and more than likely, it's probably just going to be that intro that's just so poppin', and everything else is going to be all right. But who knows? So that's all there is for this player here. That's all there is to show. I just modded my mono-only PAL CED player to play back stereo, and I just wanted to show it off because I know it's a really unique thing, and people will probably be interested to hear how it works, and that's why I wanted to do this. And the reason I should add is why it works is because, well, I found out between the two standards, there's really not much else. There's really the only thing different electronically with this and the US player is the fact that this has to spin at 375 RPM. A US player has to spin at 450 RPM. That's a result of our being 60 Hertz and the UK's being 50 Hertz. And the video converter circuitry in this, is in the PAL frequency. So PAL chroma is at 4.43 megahertz. The US players are going to be in have 3.58 megahertz. So if you got this to spin up at 450 RPM, the turntable, and you spin a US disc in there, well, you got the turntable speed right, but the player's still going to try and play back an NTSC disc in the PAL color standard, which means you're not going to get anything out of it. So if you want to modify this to play back in NTSC, or play back a PAL disc in an NTSC player, you have to address how you're going to get the video converter circuitry to play back in the region of the disc you want to play back. So it's more than just spinning up, slowing down turntable speed. You have to address the different frequencies that these video converter circuits use. And I also want to add an observation. The video converter I see in this player has a couple more pins than the video converter I see in the standard RCA US player. So a basic chip swap is going to need a little more care just because you have to address those extra pins. And that's it for the player. I did want to show off something else. It's unfortunate that, well, I'll explain in a bit. So this is something that an ex-employee who recently joined the group, he realized he had this PAL evaluation disc, and he was just offering up the shipping. So I got in touch with him, and he was able to get it shipped. But as it turns out, the disc inside is actually the US disc of Allegro non Troppo. I don't own the disc, so this is kind of and it's also not. I think it is generally sought after. So I can't remember the market on that, but so it's nice that I have that disc. But it's a shame that this caddy doesn't have any special PAL stuff in there, or even any special US test discs. It's just a commercial release. There's nothing on the back. It is just a blank with the blank barcode, interesting enough, and there's nothing on the back here. So But yeah, so it is possible that they never got to make test discs because RCA was only in the UK for 6 months because when they pulled the plug on making new players, the UK market went along with it. So that's so it's possible they just didn't get to make tests, you know, any special in-house discs, but they at least made the Caddy label, which is just unique enough and special enough to have on display in the video store. So since I wouldn't be able to show that otherwise, I figured I should at least let all of YouTube be able to see that, because it's something you probably hard to say when you'll see something like that again, or if you'll see a Caddy like that and it actually has a like PAL vaporware title. Wouldn't that been something if I got Meatloaf live in that Caddy? That would have been special. But sometimes it just doesn't work out. I'm still happy I have that. And going back to this, I'm very happy that this is, you know, in good shape. That I really am enjoying the PAL stuff for this format, and I've probably went on for too long, but that's just how I approach things, I guess. So thank you if you've watched to the end, or if you just skipped around the video. I don't blame you if you did that, just to see the goods. So I wish you all the best, and take care, and I will see you next time.